All right, part 2 of the I got a porn star for my birthday. All right, what I'm going to cover in this one is um, there's pros and cons to every size. And, in our culture, we tend to teach that bigger is better, and that's not true. If you have a woman who's built smaller, who's more petite, who's tighter, or whatever, it's going to hurt if he's too big. And it's just not going to be a match anatomically. This just period. So there's, sizes from small, medium, large, if we just want to say it that way. And luckily, you get fit with one that works for you. I've definitely had men that were too small, and it, just doesn't work. Period. Because I couldn't even feel. Mainly one, I guess I could say I felt that way about. An average size, usually if they know how to use it, you can't even tell that it's just an average size. And then the larger size, this is good for you larger men to know, and it's good for you women to know. These are the cons to it, because we probably know the pros to it. The cons are, and this is what I experienced in my birthday rendezvous, is it takes a lot more for them to come. So what, in my experience of him and the other 2 large men that I've been with in my life, that I had 2 boyfriends that were on the larger side, and honestly, one of them, it was a little painful at times. For whatever reason, I couldn't quite put my finger on it. It just something didn't feel right about it. But anyway, in general, it takes so much more power and energy and thrusting for a man who's large to actually come to orgasm, that my experience was that the intercourse experience with him becomes all about him. So that's really good for you bigger men to know, because that's not what women are looking for. We're not here to have intercourse with someone who's just making it all about him and all about him coming and having to work really hard to get enough power in there so that he can get there, because we tend to feel used in that case, and then we're just having to bear down basically until he gets there. So it's really not about us at all, and it's not very satisfying. So there's an awareness that you can have, larger men, around making sure it's about us, that it's about connection and not just about you coming. More than half of women don't come during intercourse anyway, so she's not feeling the pleasure of it. It's more just like a power trip kind of pleasure that's psychological. So a lot of men forget that. More than half of women do not come during intercourse because it's not rubbing on the clitoris. And you might be able to get the right angle eventually or find a position where it works. But for most of us, me included, it just doesn't rub on the clitoris. So it is not pleasure that we're feeling. It's more like the excitement of being overpowered and ravished by, a strong masculine. And it's more of a psychological thing. So if I were to turn the tables on you there, how would you like it if you had intercourse and you didn't feel any pleasure? Because I know you do, but you need to understand that most women don't. It's just psychological. So you got to make it worth their while by taking care of them first, so that they do feel the pleasure, and then it warms them up also to be able to receive you as well. So it wasn't as good as I had hoped it would be. He had a lot of power and all that, and that was great, and he had speed, and he was definitely, like, I had probably the most chemistry I've ever had with a man with him, and it was super sexy and hot and all that. But that doesn't matter if he doesn't pleasure me. So I could tell that, like the making out part that we had the first night together was so much more connective and intimate and varied and romantic and all those things. Whereas when we got to the point later on where I did open myself to him as far as the intercourse part, then it just all became about him and him getting there, and he brought himself to orgasm twice without warming me up first, which, you know, I haven't been with someone in a couple months. You can see my fingers. They're long and thin, and that's the size of my canal, just like your fingers are the size of your penis. There's a correlation there. So that's how you can kind of gauge when you just meet someone, if you're wanting to see if their size might work for you. Where was I? Anyway, yeah, he didn't warm me up. Even though I kind of told him, oh, I haven't been with someone in several months. You know, you're going to have to break me in a little bit, but he did not ease me into it at all. And so it was a little uncomfortable. And yes, it's my job to speak up, but I was really wanting to see how aware he was, because he did so good on the makeout part, that I wanted to see if he could carry that through to the intercourse part. And that's where I find that men tend to go awry. Somehow the intercourse part, like, they get penis head and they're not thinking straight, or they're not considering the woman. It's like all about them. And so I'm not a porn watcher, because I found it disturbing, honestly. I could tell the women weren't into it, and they were just doing it for the money, and that they were pretty uncomfortable at times, because I'm psychic and sensitive and all that. But my theory is that men, it's almost like you've been programmed to do it this certain way that totally doesn't work for women. And I have to believe that there's something in porn that almost repeats that pattern over and over again, so that you think that that's normal, and so you do it that way. And this is the pattern I'm talking about. You move too fast, you're not warming her up first, you're not taking care of her first necessarily. Of course, this is the generalization, okay? This is how this male pattern tends to go, and I've been the brunt of it many, many times, and so have my clients and friends. And then it's kind of more about him and him coming, and then he might come a couple times, and then you're left kind of going, well, what about me? You know? And then it's like he's too tired to be present to take care of me, and that's what happened in this case. But I did speak up, and I said, you know, I haven't come yet, and I would really like, you know, we had a bunch of pounding and stuff, but I'd really like you to maybe experience you more on the gentle side and just touch me in a way, and so that I can release. But he was tired, you know, which a man will be after releasing twice and pounding and all that. And so he's not able to stay present and focused enough to get me there. So it took longer for me to get there. And it's a little bit frustrating, because he's sort of like almost going in and out of consciousness. And then I end up feeling like an afterthought instead of, you know, important. So that seems to be, and a lot of women don't speak up, and then they don't get taken care of, and then it's like they wonder why we don't really want to do it again, or we're not that into it. And after that, you know. So anyway, that's my, you know, awareness that I wanted to bring to men who are well endowed, is you're going to need to have an awareness to make it about both of you and be connective about it, and like change your pace, because it's one thing to pound, but, you know, some of us, like myself, like it slow and deep, and it's kind of more connected, because you can, you know, look me in the eye, and, you know, it's just sexy in a different way. It's very present in the moment, because otherwise I'm just like bracing myself. And you know, if she's going to really truly be enrolled in intercourse part of things, you're going to have to make it about her too, and do what she likes. And you got to ask questions. And I know men aren't used to, like, that's not their style of communication, to ask questions, but when it comes to sex, it really comes in handy. You've got to find out what works for her, what turns her on. Otherwise, she's going to be like, eh. So, trying to think if there's anything else about large men that I think that covers most of it. So I wanted to just highlight that because sometimes our culture, just tends to say, oh yeah, that's the best. But, if he doesn't really know how to use it, and if he's a large man in general, he's not going to be able to do different positions and angles because there's more muscle there in the way and he's not as agile. And I find that the lighter ones, honestly, are more versatile that way and greater with like varied positions and so forth. And so that was something else I noticed, because one in particular of the three men that in my life that were large, like he was just built like a football player and he just didn't have as much variety to offer because, moving his body around is more of an undertaking, say, than like a thinner man or a man who's more agile. So anyway, I will see you in part 3.